plastic bottles indeed. But we have desalination plants. That's what we have nowadays. We have the technology available. But in the past, no desalination plants. Everybody had to collect rain water. That's how it used to be. Just give me 1 second, guys, to see if we find the other people. No, guys, still no luck. So maybe at the next stop, who knows? Let me try to call the lady. Alright guys, so for now we continue. So I was telling you about the desalination plants. It means that we have that problem covered, but in the past everybody was trying to collect rain water. And this is one of the reasons why in the villages we had to go uphill. They were built uphill, not only for defensive purposes, but so that people could collect rainwater. Another reason for this is the fact that in the past most people were farmers. And you saw how small Santorini is, so people needed to economize on land to be able to cultivate something. Most people were not wealthy Catholics, they were ordinary people, fishermen, farmers. They didn't care about having a big house, they didn't have money for a big house. What they needed were the fields. So one more reason to build uphill. So it means also that everything used to be pristine white, but not painted with plastic paint like many people do nowadays, especially restaurants, coffee shops and hotels. Everything was constantly whitewashed. That's how it used to be. Lime, even today, is easily available in Santorini because of the mountain. The mountain we were on just a few minutes ago is one of the few parts of Santorini that is not of volcanic origin. You can tell just by looking at the color. It's composed of limestone. So lime was always very easily available here and very cheap. More importantly, lime has disinfecting properties. So it would be disinfecting, up to some extent, the whole village and all the routes through which rain water would be passing before reaching the family cistern. We were also whitewashing the family cisterns. Many families were putting big pieces of limestone at the bottom of the cistern to try to keep the water for more time. But guys, does it rain a lot in Santorini? What do you think? No, it doesn't rain much, so this was never enough. And other boats, tankers, were coming to Santorini from other parts of Greece to bring the water that was needed on the island. Some people are still trying to collect rainwater when the time comes, because even though we are in 2024, not everybody is connected to the municipality when it comes to water. I'm not, for example. We are about 45% of the population that is not connected yet. In my case, I live in Berissa. That's where we go for your free time on the beach. That's where I live. And that particular part of the island is not connected yet. So it means we still need to use our cisterns. We don't collect water though, but we have to pay extra. The trucks you might have seen on the island, the water trucks, they come to your house usually once a month. They fill up the cistern, and then we have a pump to bring the water from the cistern to the house. That is not a big problem per se, only when we have power cuts, and God knows there's a lot of power cuts in Santorini. We never know when or for how long. So about half of the population, when there is no electricity, it means that we don't have water either. This is one of the biggest problems of the last 10-15 years. But the Greek government finally decided to do something about it, as Santorini is the most visited island here in Greece. Millions of people come to Santorini every season, every year. And they have put a cable under the sea. We are connected now with Athens, the mainland, the capital. We are talking about a project that costs about 500 million euros, guys. So the cable is in place. They are now building the facilities in Santorini, and we are told that from 2025 onwards, we'll have electricity coming directly from Athens, so no more power cuts. Fingers crossed, we can't wait for 2025 to come, to tell you the truth. And then it will be cheaper, electricity I mean, and it will be greener also. So we are waiting for 2025 to come so that everybody on the island can live with electricity and water 24/7. That would be fantastic, you have no idea. Also guys, I wanted to tell you that whitewashing everything is not mandatory anymore. It used to be, especially in the 1940s, because at the time there were a lot of diseases on the island, such as cholera. That's the reason why it was mandatory, but it's not anymore. Many families prefer lime though, because it's breathable for the walls. The buildings are always much cooler. It's easy to apply. You just have to do it twice when you live by the sea. Once a year is not enough. So some people still do that, and that is what you see at the bottom of the trees. Maybe you have noticed that the bottom of the trees is white. That is lime. It's not harming the trees in any way. On the contrary, it's protecting the bark from the heat, and most insects do not like lime, so they will not go up the trees. They'll leave them alone. Finally, the streets are quite narrow and windy all the time. That's why people like old villages. Keep in mind that when we talk about folk architecture, there is always a practical reason, a practical purpose. The streets are narrow and winding all the time, mostly because of the weather conditions that sometimes can be extreme. Extreme means a lot of wind. So much wind that boats and planes will not be coming. We might be cut off from everything and everyone for 2 or 3 days in a row. Not even the big blue star, usually coming every day from Athens, will come. And that's a very big ferry. It might bring us 3,500 passengers and more than 100 trucks and cars. So imagine how big it is. But the boat stays in Athens, too dangerous. And the heat in summer. So if the streets are narrow and winding all the time like a labyrinth, they are going to cut the winds on windy days, and when it's very hot in summer, from 2 p.m. on, most of the streets are in the shade, right? And they always have, the main streets at least, the right dimensions for the old means of transport. The mules, the horses, the donkeys, so it's always the size of one of those animals, plus what the animal would be transporting. That could be food supplies or construction materials. Everything has a practical purpose. The rooftops, do you have any idea why they are vaulted? This is basically the trademark of Santorini. Any idea? You might be surprised by the answer, guys. It has nothing to do with the collection of water, any of those things. It is because of the lack of trees. Not a lot of trees in Santorini in the past. There were a lot of vines though. More than 5,000 hectares of vines. They were everywhere. Remember that most people were ordinary people. They didn't have money for timber that had to be imported from other parts of Greece, sometimes even from abroad. So they had to think. And the best idea is this: when you don't have much money and volcanic stones available. This particular shape, guys, they were just using the compressive strength of stone, using volcanic stones for free, available everywhere. And to build the template, they were using twigs from vines since they didn't have any timber. So this particular shape is the cheapest and fastest way to finish all the buildings to span such a large area that is a rooftop. Now think about all the photographs and postcards you have seen about Santorini. The traditional buildings, don't they look like tiny cubes? Don't they look very sturdy? Well, now you know why. It is because of the first rooftop, the vaulted one, because it was thin, approximately like this, if you can see my hands, and it means that we needed very thick side walls, at least 70 centimeters on each side, to withstand the forces of the vault. So that's how it used to be, guys. And then most families were putting a layer of pumice on top of the vaulted rooftop, because in the past they needed insulation to start with, better temperatures inside. In winter or in summer, and the flat surfaces such as rooftops and terraces were used, for example, to sun-dry figs. There's a lot of fig trees in Santorini. Sun-dried tomatoes, sun-dried grapes to produce the famous Vincenzo. So everything had a practical purpose. Now guys, after the gas station, look on your right and you will see some windmills. The 8 windmills of the south, they are now being restored, and they belong to the village of Embori, which is where we go now. We'll be arriving in less than a minute. And I wanted you to know that there used to be a lot of windmills in Santorini, probably around 70 windmills scattered all over the island, and they were used to grind barley at the time, and most of them nowadays are in ruins. And generally speaking, there's a lot of ruins in Santorini. Maybe some of you have noticed that is because of the last big earthquake that destroyed about 80% of Santorini. If you know the Richter scale, you will understand, as we are talking about a magnitude of 7.8 on the Richter scale on the 9th of July in 1956. So until that day, guys, 4 of the 5 Venetian castles were intact, standing. It's the case of the one you will see in a few minutes. It was still inhabited by families. All the windmills were still working also. So about 80 to 85% of the buildings were destroyed or severely damaged, and that's the reason why you see so many ruins everywhere. Even sometimes next to fancy places, next to famous pictures, you might see some ruins. It is because of the earthquake, and it is also important to know that, as this is part of Santorini's history. In the meantime, we made it to the village of Emboria, so welcome. We are going to see now if Nikos can park. If he can park, we wait for him to park. In case he cannot, he's going to stop for us on the road. We will get off the bus quickly and we will go until the Venetian castle. And then I will call him back and he will come to pick us up.
Nhà này nó làm thấp quá, nóng chịu nổi rồi. Nó cũng xây gạch ống nha.